somebody was, so, you know, maybe they are asleep in the closet or something.
Yes, 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, there's 12 pens. Okay, you, I got my A plus.
Excellent writers. I'm not really going to give you a writing exercise tonight.
Oh,
what
you're
I
not?
figure I will do is I will blather at you for a bit, and I'll read a couple of stories, and I will blather at you a bit more, and then we'll open up for questions. If there are no questions, I'll just keep reading until the sun burns out into a cold, dark cinder. Okay, let's start. I've got a stopwatch here to make sure that
Are you good with the lighting as it is?
the lighting is good.
Okay.
Are we ready to roll?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Are we recording? Oh.
Yeah, I hit record. I hit record.
Cool. Welcome on Zoom land. I guess there's one or two people out there. Okay. How did I come to writing? 1997. Wrecked my wrists at work. I could go to work. I could work, use my hands for about 15 minutes on the keyboard. I would go to my martial arts class. I'd do stuff for about 15 minutes. And then my instructor said, oh, just do a Bagua circles. And you're walking around in a circle doing this for like 2 hours where everybody else is doing the fun stuff. And workers' comp said, well, you know, we'll give you 2 weeks salary to you know, thanks a lot, you know, wrecked career for 2 weeks salary. And I said, who's gonna help me? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna earn a living. And I remember sitting in meditation, sort of getting an image of Allen Ginsberg saying, well, I'll help you. And, you know, it wasn't as big as a hallucination, but maybe it's a little bit more than just an imagination. And so I had written some poems out of Zen. They just kind of bubbled up, and I wrote them down. And I started going to poetry readings in San Diego. There was a very talented and welcoming community there. I hung out in San Diego in the doing poetry for 20-some years. I ran a poetry reading for 8 years. As far as the risks go, somehow, don't feel sorry for me, somehow I muddled through and made it to retirement. The risk didn't come back 100%, but most of the time I get by. The only thing I would say is treat the next guy better. So I wrote poems, and I think, well, why don't I write a story? So I wrote a story. I thought, you know, novels are all the money. I should write a novel. So I wrote an episodic novel. And guess what? Novels aren't really all the money are. What kind of motivates me is that I've met a lot of great teachers, physicists, martial artists, Zen teachers. And at best, I think I'm kind of an intermediate student, but I have a perspective, and it's maybe something to share with people. And also, in some sense, it's kind of a way to be a servant to an inspiration. You get an idea, and it's like you're bringing that to life. And so since I do Zen and I do writing, I kind of look for parallels. The first thing I'll say is that writing a story or a novel is an act of faith for me. I'm not the kind of person that can outline the whole story. I have to walk through it to find out where it's going. There's a quote, and I think it's from William Styron, and I remember hearing it, and I couldn't find it again, but he says something like this. A novel is like walking a mile in pitch blackness. You have a flashlight that will illuminate 1 foot ahead of you. It's not much, but it's enough. There is a temple in Japan, in Shikoku, called Zensuji. It's the pilgrimage of 88 temples for Shingon Buddhism. You might think that's very spiritual, but the Japanese do it in tour buses. Anyway, I only went to the one temple, and it's Zensuji. And what you do is you go down into the tunnel. It's pitch black, and you walk along the tunnel with your right hand on the wall into the darkness. You walk and you walk. it's dark, and you don't know how if you're gonna get out of there or not. And then suddenly, you come to a big hall, and the lights kick on, and there's Kobo Daishi, the founder of Shingon Buddhism, and there's chanting and everything like that. But then you have to keep going on. So leave that behind. Put your hand on the wall, you walk into darkness until you're back to your life. That's kind of what writing is. So, think about the Four Noble Truths, right? Suffering exists, the cause of suffering, there's a way out, and the Noble Eightfold Path. And I think about the cause of suffering. And what do they really say the cause of suffering is? Grasping at sensual delights. I think that's not enough. I think human life is more than an addiction model. So when I look at the Pali Sutras, they expand what you can grasp. Clinging to sensual pleasures, sure. Clinging to opinions. Clinging to rites and rituals, Clinging to annihilation. And clinging to the false view of self. For me, I think the stories I tell myself are a cause of suffering. For example, could be a cause of suffering for a nation. America is the land of freedom and justice. Therefore, anybody who opposes us is evil. Some truth to that, right? But maybe you're missing a little subtlety. You're missing the point there. Thich Nhat Hanh said something similar to that about the stories we tell ourselves. So now, if you take a fiction class, what are they going to tell you? Fiction is about conflict. What does the character want? What struggles does he go through to get it or to not get it? Sounds a lot like grasping, doesn't it? It works really well. There are a lot of entertaining stories like that. But lately I find it kind of formulaic. I watch a movie or a TV show and I see the writer's dirty fingerprints on the story, introducing needless conflict. Why isn't decoding the alien language enough for a story? Why do you have some sort of general that wants to blow up the whole world too? It should be enough, right? So another thing that they'll tell you is active characters. Characters that go out and do stuff. Characters who are in charge of their own lives. Kind of a cultural prejudice for meritocracy, right? Not everybody can do that. There are structural inequalities. That doesn't take care of it. That said, I've read some books about people who are helpless that just get beaten down. It's not very entertaining reading. What was it? There was some sort of Scottish novel. The guy goes blind in the first chapter, and it's the rest of the whole book, 300 pages about the guy just struggling and suffering. And, the critics loved it, but I don't know. Poetry. Okay, so how do you write a non-formulaic story? How do you write something that doesn't follow that template, but is still interesting to the reader? It's a challenge. Poetry. Well, poetry can be narrative, it tells a story, but poetry can also be lyrical. Lyrical poetry, what does it do? It describes something. It describes an image, okay? But there's also a tie-in there, I think, in meditation. When you're doing meditation, what do? You just let the images come. You do raw experience. You don't try to tack on ideas and explanations to it. And I think one way that you can write lyrical poetry is to just write the experience itself. It doesn't mean you should do it all the time, because sometimes the poem is about your reaction to something. That's good too. But like the beginning poets say, I see a flower, I see a blue sky, I hear the sound of the bees. Okay, what's wrong with saying there's a flower and the sky's blue and the bees are buzzing? Why does the verse be in there? Doesn't necessarily have to. I'm not the first person to write experimental stories or be interested in that. I called them anti-stories. There's a poet from Chile, Nicanor Parra. He's the brother of Violeta Parra, the folk singer from the Nueva Canción thing. He's also a physicist. He writes some poems about anti-poems. Okay, so let me read you a story that kind of puts this into, I don't know, summarizes this or something. It's called Wildcat. What was the Cyclops' name in the Odyssey? I pulled out my dog-eared paperback of Homer to find the answer, but all its pages were blank. Odd. I checked Shakespeare's complete works and found the same thing. I rifled the dusty pressboard bookshelves that sagged under the weight of my fiction collection. The words had walked off the job in Chekhov, Hemingway, Richard Yates, Raymond Carver, and dozens of others. After dropping the blank volumes on the carpet, I checked the rest. Dictionaries and textbooks were untouched, as were Borges and Italo Calvino. Only one book on quantum mechanics remained on my Kindle. Puzzled by this mystery, I drove to the library and found a picket line blocking the entrance. Dressed in toga and crown, Oedipus shook his fist at the cowering librarians and shouted, "Does my love life amuse you?" Hester Prynne carried a placard with a struck through A in a red circle. James Bond chanted, "I hate martinis." "What's this about?" I asked Scout Finch. "Fiction readers get their rocks off by watching us suffer. We've had enough and demand sick leave, a $15 minimum wage, and that authors follow OSHA workplace safety rules." I sat on the steps in the shade of a stone lion to contemplate what she'd said. Why did readers enjoy the suffering of others? Must fiction rely on thwarting characters' wants? How could one write a literature of love, mutual respect, and solidarity instead? What if Juno's parents had gotten her the birth control pill? What if Humbert and Tom Ripley had gotten the therapy they needed? What if Joseph K. could afford a better lawyer? Would deciphering an alien language without some rogue general threatening interstellar genocide still interest a reader? Before I had time to answer these questions, Robert McKee led a squad of helmeted writing students carrying truncheons and riot shields into the square. "This is an illegal assembly," he shouted through a megaphone. "You have 5 minutes to leave." The strikers shook their fists and cursed. McKee gave the order and the riot squad attacked in a stunning display of conflict in fiction. A rubber bullet shattered Oedipus's eyes while readers stayed up past their bedtimes to witness pepper spray disable Hester Prynne and zip ties bind Jay Gatsby's wrists. Writers clubbed Emma Bovary to her knees, kicked her in the ribs with steel-toed boots, and tossed her bleeding body between a hardcover's pages. The scene shot to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. In their review, they praised the riot as a triumphant return to form. And if you're not familiar with Robert McKee, if you know that movie adaptation where they have the writer giving Nicolas Cage the writing advice, that's supposed to be Robert McKee. He's one of those guys that wrote one of those books on fiction, plotting, and stuff. Okay. And I'm showing, not telling here, right? I'm going to show, not tell. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so Jack Grapes is kind of the grand old man of writing in Southern California, and I'd met him maybe once or twice. I was watching a YouTube channel called Film Courage, and Jack Grapes did numerous interviews there. And he was kind of talking up my alley about the same stuff, you know. It's actually wonderful interviews. He's not only very smart about literature, but he's also good at marketing. Southern California, actors, method acting. What does he call his stuff? Method writing. I took a couple of his classes online on Zoom, and the technique that I liked best was something called the image moment. You sandwich a description between two short actions or two pieces of dialogue or something. It's nothing much is happening, takes less than a minute. So what kind of descriptions do you have? I went back and looked at all 7. Let's see, there is the set, okay? The setting, the set, any kind of props in there, the mood, which should be the background music, the smell of the incense, the lighting of the candles, the characters, you know, somebody's pierced ear here, the costumes, the zafus, the whatever's, you know, the robes and such like that, and any kind of commentary. Commentary, like an explanation, or you're remembering something, you're trying to explain this. So I think he got that. It fit naturally into first-person detective stories, noir stories, and I think he must have got that from Raymond Chandler. Because, you know, if you read Raymond Chandler, the Philip Marlowe novels, the joy is in the descriptions. Every line is witty. And I can read those and I love them. I don't really feel like, oh, here's a conflict in the plot. It's so boring. I'm kind of sick of this. You know, everything is a smile. So let me see. Okay. So I started writing some of these things too. This is actually a parody of the Maltese Falcon. Was written by Dashiell Hammett, not Raymond Chandler. You know, I think I like Chandler better than Dashiell Hammett, but Dashiell Hammett was actually a real detective, you know, for 6 months for the Pinkertons. You know, Philip Marlowe always gives back the fee to the client, and Dashiell Hammett, who'd been a detective, said you better do that. Anyway, so here's the parody. I'll read a little bit of it. You can kind of see how it goes. It's called The Cashier Always Rings Twice. I was sitting in my basement office at 4th and Drucker with nothing to keep me company but a bottle of rye whiskey and a bad attitude. Business was slow. It was already the 10th of the month and Mom was bugging me about the rent. Then an American black bear walked in. She had a broad skull and narrow muzzle covered with dense underfur and long, coarse guard hairs. Is this the Pill Bottle Detective Agency? That's right. I tilted back my fedora to get a better look at her. Morris Pillbotter, owner and general manager at your service. Being the only employee, that pretty much made me both, but knowledge is power, so I didn't tell her that. Morris, huh? I thought detectives were supposed to have manly names like Dick, Rod, or Johnson. If you want to discuss Freud's theories, I said, you'd better be seeing Dr. Feigenbaum at Drucker and Forth, or taking Intro to Psych at the Antelope Valley Community College. What gives? My name is Ursula Fogbottom. I think somebody followed me here. Tall guy in khaki pants and a pale blue shirt? Yeah, Ursula sat on her haunches. That's David Attenborough. He wouldn't bother you. I poured a shot of whiskey into a clear glass and slid it over to her. I don't get many bears in here. At these prices, no wonder. Ursula wrapped her meaty paws around the glass, but couldn't get the hang of lifting it. I'll ask you again, what gives? I'm hosting a banquet. I need someone to pick up some tofu, broccoli, and oyster sauce at the grocery store. She tapped her short, rounded claws on my desk. I propose to pay you a tidy sum to do my shopping. Just how tidy are we talking about? I asked. $5. That doesn't even fold my laundry. 10, still leaves a lot of dirty dishes and think. 12, what about the lime stains in the shower? 20, you drive a hard bargain, Mr. Pillbottle. Ursula Fogbottom stood and extended her paw. Do we have a deal? I shook and watched her walk out the door. She had the full figure of someone who'd foraged berries and raw salmon in preparation for a long winter snooze. Smart mammal, but she got one thing wrong. I drove a Hyundai. I buckled my snub-nosed 45 under my trench coat and went shopping. Next scene. I grabbed the basket from inside the sliding doors. The dispenser of sanitizing cloths was empty, so I took my chances with the residue left over from employees desperate for a tilapia fillet or carton of chicken tenders on their way home from the daily grind of spreadsheets, corporate mission statements, and cold calling consumers to sell extended warranties for the napkin rings they bought sometime during the Clinton administration. The produce section was a collection of afterthoughts from America's meat-based diet, a cornucopia of dietary sermons ignored by children and adults alike. I found the broccoli between the Brussels sprouts and button mushrooms. Only 2 pieces remained. The florets were yellow as a Bedouin's urine, and the stalks as limp as an 80-year-old watching Barney the dinosaur while getting a root canal from Cinderella's stepsisters. Some guys might be into that, but I wasn't, especially at $8.99 a pound. Robbery, I muttered. The tofu was the ugly duckling in a flock of tempeh, hummus, and vegan hot dogs, and a possible beef Wellington. I collected 2 packs along with a bottle of Lee Kung Kee oyster sauce from the Asian section. When I returned to produce for one last look, the broccoli was gone. Okay, we'll pick it up later if you want to hear it. It's also this is also up on a website called Freedom Fiction, so you can find all that stuff there. All right, so you want to be a writer. Here's some things to talk about. You'll never get the reassurance that you're good. No matter where you are, you'll always have that doubt. There are no rules to writing, there are only rules of thumb. One of those rules of thumb is show, don't tell. Use imagery, metaphor, action, and dialogue. Don't do a data dump. Poetry, we talked about poetry, raw experience versus interpretation. Eliminate dead words. You know, when I do reading critique sessions for people's poems, I just cross stuff out. You know, it's extra, it's not doing any work. You want to use vivid language, right? You know, not like the animal, you know, the piebald unicorn, you know, not the unicorn who walked to the barn, unicorn tango to the barn or something like that. But, you know, when you get rid of words, you don't want to get so many that you sound like Tarzan. Jane, come, elephant in, you know. Characters don't have to be likable. They have to be interesting. Villains, I think, should be fully human and not evil stereotypes. They have to have a rationale. Why are they doing what they're doing? Everybody's a hero in their own story. Be honest. Write what you really think and feel. Don't write what society wants you to write, what politicians want you to write, what your peers want you to write, what your teachers want you to write, what your Zen master wants you to write. Use writing to explore what you really feel. And the other thing I come up against a lot is right speech. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? I often find that what I say is true and necessary, but it's not often kind. Let me read you a poem about being honest. John Fox is a guy who lost a leg to cancer, and I think he had a MFA in creative writing or something. And he used poetry to heal himself. And he was one of the original people in poetry therapy. He's got a wonderful book called Poetic Medicine. He has a voice kind of like Walt Whitman, and the poems that he chooses in that book, like real life stuff. And here's one that he often likes to read. It's called A Ritual to Read to Each Other, and it's by William Stafford. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts and horrible errors of childhood storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel and maybe the root of all cruelty to know what others but not recognize the fact. What occurs, sorry. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The dark around us is deep. I think the first stanza is the best. Okay, let me see. I blathered at you for 25 minutes. If you have questions, I will answer them, or try, or not answer them.
So presently, when you're writing, are you typing, or you're not typing? Are you doing speech to text, or what's the mechanism of getting it into wherever you're getting it to?
Yeah, I used to write on legal pads. Now I seem to be typing into word processor most of the time.
So you're not talking?
No. It is good when I am proofreading to read it aloud, because that slows it down enough to where I can see, if you're just reading it, you skip over the mistake that you made. Here you go, oh, that's wrong, that wrong, so on and so forth. Anybody else?
Question.
Okay.
Thinking about when I've written things, I struggle with being done. And so how do you either decide, or what's your relationship with being done with a piece of work? That whole done is better than perfect, but wanting it to be perfect.
Yeah. James Allen used to say, don't get it perfect, get it done. I don't know. Okay. Well, write it, put it away for 2 weeks, look at it again. Especially with a story. It's a story, I'll get that first draft. Oh my God. Okay, then you go back, and then it's fun, you can kind of edit and throw in a little goofy stuff like, American Black Bears and stuff. And a novel, the first draft is a struggle, but the second draft is also a struggle, because you'll find that the first draft is a train wreck, and that it doesn't fit together at all, and there's a really big message in it you have to fix up. And if you get a novel past the second draft, at least it's starting to be something that you maybe should have people, I think. Depends on you. I mean, everybody has their own process, and people do things differently. This is what I do, this is what I works for me, and it could be totally different for another writer.
I have the opposite problem. I think I'm done after the very first draft. I have no interest in revisiting it. I have no interest in doing multiple edits, despite the fact that multiple edits inevitably make it very much better. Do you ever have that experience? And if so, how do you convince yourself of the imperfection of your first draft enough to...
I always go back and look at it. I mean, sometimes it's a struggle to go back and look at it. I'll tell you the other way to find mistakes. Submit it somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as you submit it somewhere, you're like, oh God, I missed this. It's terrible. You fix it. Yeah. Most of the time, you reject it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah. No, you're supposed to say long time caller,
Yeah,
first time listener,
that's
that's
what
that's the.
Anyway, no, I was really struck by what you were saying at the beginning, first of all, about writing as an act of faith. So I'm interested in just a little bit more about that in relationship to your zazen. I mean, you're here all the time with us on Thursdays, and I just really wanting to hear how your zazen goes with your faith, which is the writing piece. Right? It's
I don't-
really cool.
I don't think there's anything much deeper about it than what I said. I think Zen is when you're writing, and when you're sitting, you're sitting. And when you're doing science, you're doing science. And when you're practicing martial arts, you're practicing martial arts. It's what's in front of you.
So why call that faith?
Because you don't know. Because you don't know if you can complete it. Because you're making the effort, even if you don't know you're going to succeed. That's why I call it faith. How much time have I gone? Okay, we've done 30 minutes. How much time do we have? I'll read you some more stories for the stories.
So like 8:25.
What time is it now?
I don't know, you have a, oh,
Do I
you
have
have
to
a
stop?
stopwatch? But I can
Until it's time to.
ready, go.
It is 7:50.
7:50.
A long
Did a long reach.
A long reach.
Go gadget all the way.
And go gadget.
All right, you know what I'll do? I'll just read you some more of the story, and we'll do another 10 or 15 minutes of this and see how it goes.
In our childhood.
If you have more questions, then we can ask more questions. Like a pair of bouncers, traffic cones guarded the parking lot to keep cars out of the afternoon farmers market. 24 aluminum frames supported awnings that shaded tables of seafood, jelly, spice mixes, pastries, and produce. A guy held out a paper plate with slices of pluot. Something about his jeweled eye patch and reverse mohawk seemed familiar. Aren't you Norman Toner Cartridge, the accountant who built old ladies out of billions on that phony fiberglass mine at the North Pole? I'm paying my debt to society with 30 minutes of community service, he said. You want the taste of pluots or not? I took a slice. The fruit was sweet as a verdict obtained by the lawyer only the super rich could afford. I continued my orbit of the parking lot. A tamale truck filled the air with a scent of fresh masa. You could eat one at the table or buy them frozen for later. The stand sold peaches, cherries, squash blossoms, and blue lake green beans, but no broccoli. I stopped in front of a pile of sugar snap peas. Through years of careful observation, my gut told me these would make an adequate substitution for my client's stir-fry. Excuse me, I asked the vendor. Got any broccoli? She turned away as if she didn't hear. Got any broccoli? I asked at every stand. Nothing, so I gave the woman a fin for a pound of sugar snap peas in a white plastic bag. A skinny guy was leaning against my Hyundai when I rounded the corner by the post office. He had the crooked nose of the guy who took the last of the 2-for-1 Monterey Jack one too many times. You're asking too many questions for your own good, pal. He spat the toothpick out of his mouth. What business is it of yours? I reached for my stub-nosed .45. Fast as a mongoose on a hot plate, he pulled my trench coat over my shoulders, trapping my hands by my side. Skinny's punch to the gut doubled me over, and I spilled the sugar snap peas on the pavement. Consider this a friendly warning. Skinny jammed another toothpick between his incisors and walked away. Excuse me, sir, is this the Pill Bottle Detective Agency? The client handed me a business card that smelled of pyramid patchouli. He wore white gloves, a Homburg hat, and was so delicate I doubted he'd win the wrestling match with a gerbil. My name is Gilbert Gies, and I'm wondering if you can find my lost kitten. Kitten, huh? What's its name? Cat. Not much of a name. What can I say? I'm a Breakfast at Tiffany's fan. Giza made a steeple with his fingers. There will be how do you say, tidy bonus for you if you find her. How tidy we talking about, I asked. $5. Wouldn't even dust my bookshelf. 10. I still need to reorder my fiction collection. 15. All right, I'll draw up a standard contract. I reached into my drawer. When I raised my eyes, I was staring into a pistol that would look tiny in a baby's hands. Where's the broccoli? Giza demanded. Don't have any. I'll have to search your office. So step out from behind that desk, he ordered. I need to make sure you don't have any weapons. I complied, even though a 98-year-old smoker in an iron lung could have knocked him over. None were in my office, so I slugged him in the jaw. He went down like a Bloody Mary on a hot afternoon. I woke him with a splash of Tabasco sauce to the face, and then threatened him with a stalk of celery unless he took me to see his boss. Ah, Mr. Pillbottle, do take a seat. The fat man had the body of a Zeppelin in a smoking jacket, jowls of a bloodhound on Novocaine, and complexion of the leather couch that had been in the sun too long. He poured green liquid into a glass. Would you care for a smoothie? Sure, why not, I replied. Excellent, sir. We'll get along splendidly. I don't trust a man who skips on the USDA recommendations of 5 fruits and vegetables a day. He slid me the glass. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Greengrocer, Sidney Greengrocer. I eyed the skinny guy with the toothpick who punched me in the gut, slouching in the corner. I do apologize for Waldo's behavior. The fat man wiped his brow with a handkerchief. He gets overly enthusiastic before mealtime. So why'd you send this chump to toss my office? I pointed to Giza. Giza's hands went for his gun. Unfortunately for him, it was in my pocket, so I slugged him once more, and he went down like a watermelon from the top of a 12-story building. Well said, sir. Admire a man who says what he means, even though he has less chance of getting laid than by being struck by a meteor while attacked by a saltwater crocodile in Norway. Here's to honest and forthright discussion. The fat man raised his glass. It seems we have a mutual interest in broccoli, the emerald scepter, leaf of longevity, stock of serenity, the fluoride of flavor. Care to tell me why? Trust goes both ways. I sipped my smoothie. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. How? You are a character, sir. I admire a man who deals in witticisms, even though he couldn't win a debate with a salamander who never made it through second grade. The story behind my search is wondrous. I doubt you would believe it. But what about you? Are you working for Olivia Office Supply? Who? Tabitha Printer Paper? Never heard of her. Penelope Staple Puller? Oh, you mean Ursula Fogbottom. Be careful, sir. She's not who she appears to be. The fat man drained his glass. Let me just say that I'm prepared to pay you a tidy sum if you procure some broccoli for me. Just how tidy are we talking about? $25. That might straighten my shoes, I said, but I still need to vacuum the living room. 27. Still need to rearrange my spice rack. You drive a hard bargain, sir. $30. I'll keep my eyes open. This was the second time someone got my choice of transportation wrong. I began to smell a rat, or maybe it was just the onions Waldo was grilling in the kitchen. I fuel stripped Giza's pistol and left the pieces next to the baby carrots. I found Ursula Fogbottom stripping wooden paneling in the hallway when I got back to the office. Morris, I've been looking all over for you. My dinner party is tomorrow and I don't have the ingredients. She huffed and let out a grunt. I'm frantic, I tell you, frantic. I got something for you. I let her in and sat behind the desk and poured myself a shot of whiskey in the fridge. Her face was a mixture of calculation and disbelief, as if a parking valet had handed her the keys to someone else's Porsche, and all she had to do was not let on. When she saw only the tofu and oyster sauce, her expression dropped like that of a child who got a dictionary for Christmas instead of the Hot Wheels Super Ultimate Garage playset. Sorry, Angel, couldn't find broccoli anywhere. Maybe you could substitute cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi. That just won't do. Don't you see? The recipe calls for broccoli, and if I don't cook it right, I'll be a laughingstock. A laughingstock. She squatted behind my desk and looked up with pleading eyes. I tried so hard to prove bears can be 5-star Michelin chefs, but every time I go to the store, patrons run for the exits as I'm going to guzzle all the honey in the baking supplies aisle. Oh, I'm just a silly omnivore, not someone like you. You have enough wit for both of us. Use your wit for me, won't you? I can resist anything except temptation. How's that? I asked. By the way, I met your friend, the fat man. What did he say? Ursula turned her back and began balancing a beach ball on her nose while squeezing her paw. He said he wants some broccoli too. Are you going to help him? Ursula turned her attention to the baseboards and began sharpening her claws. If the price is right. Oh, Morris, I can't match his riches. Be careful. He's not who he appears to be. Okay, I think I will leave it at that. That's 40 minutes. Any more questions?
John, who are you reading now and why?
Who am I reading now? I've been reading a lot of mystery books. I went and, the Edgar Awards, the Edgar Awards. So I went and looked at the Edgar Awards winners, and I just, started reading those from the last, 20 or 30 years or so. I just downloaded the new Slow Horses book, and so I just started reading that.
So I don't want to get too deep in mysteries because I may be the only one that's like into it. But so who out of that many years of award winners, anybody that really resonated with?
Let's see. Well, Ian Rankin, the Rebus novel was pretty good. He did that number 13, called The Resurrectionist. That was one that was actually kind of good. It was about some detectives who had screwed up, and so they were, completing HR training, except really going and trying to solve cases on the side when nobody was looking. There was one, Lawrence Block did one, that was pretty good that I liked.
So again, the second half of my question was why? What's appealing? What about the writing?
I don't know. It's just it holds my interest really. Does it hold your interest or not? And I run a fiction open mic on the first Sunday of the month called the Gelato East Fiction Open Mic, and I usually start out by reading something that I like. And the two questions I ask are, after the first paragraph, do you want to hear more? Why or why not? And after reading more of it, do you want to hear more? Why or why not? What was it about him? I don't know, kind of gritty. The mystery was interesting. The characters are good. Who was else? There was another one about a guy who was a cop in Louisiana, and he got still, framed for murder or something like that. So he had to go solve that to clear his name. But it was a good story, and also there was sort of just a love for the countryside and the swamp and all the fishing kind of came to life there. Well, that's what I liked about that one.
So I don't know, I heard this somewhere, I don't remember where, but do you subscribe to that a writer needs to be a reader?
Probably. Who knows? I mean, I think so. And, you are immersed in language all your life. So, I didn't learn how to write. Well, you talk, right? Jack Grape's first exercise is write like you talk. Write something down like you talk. It's probably better when you're trying to, than when you're trying to write an essay or something and trying to be terribly formal. At least for creative writing.
So you may have said it already, but I didn't quite catch it. Which came first, Zen practice, Zazen, or writing?
writing practice for you?
Yeah, Zen came first. I started sitting in DC in 1981. I had Trevor Leggett, Zen and the Ways, the book. He was a guy that was a judo player that went to Japan and did Zen. And he had, he was a meditation instructor. I can do that. And then I moved to Vancouver, Canada to do my postdoc. The Lionsgate Buddhist Priory. It wasn't the Lionsgate Buddhist Priory. It was a meditation group associated with Shasta Abbey in Vancouver. A guy named Howard Mitchell ran it, and I just started sitting with them. Howard is an interesting guy. I'm kind of the person who weird people come up and start talking to. And when I was standing next to Howard, the weird people walked past me and go start talking to Howard. That's the kind of guy he was. Then I moved to Seattle. I hung out with also the Zen Center down there. Koshin Schomburg was the teacher there. They ran into some trouble, believe me, but that was after I left. Moved to Austin, Texas. There was a Vietnamese temple called Chua Lin Son that met maybe once a month. They had meditation classes. And the white guys would come to the meditation classes, and the two Vietnamese would be the priest and his translator, Nuong, and they'd do meditation. And then all the Vietnamese people would roll in for a Pure Land ceremony. And then afterwards, there'd be a potluck of Vietnamese food, and so that was great. They made a Quan Tam fountain. Quan Tam is Quan Yin in Vietnamese. And they were putting little paper boats with a candle on them into the pond. And John, come put a paper boat with a candle in it because you always come to meditation class. And that was kind of neat. Then I moved to San Diego and I did some Dharma shopping, and I settled on what was really the Vista Zen Center, and then went through a whole bunch of different name changes and stuff like that. Then I moved out here in 2017 for a job and hooked up with you guys. And that's kind of the whole sordid story. So 1981 or 1983, sort of when Zen started, maybe 1997 when I really started writing seriously.
1981 you started sitting, and then maybe 6 or 7 years, 1987 you said you started writing seriously, is that what you said?
97.
Oh, 97, oh, okay.
There were occasional things, occasional poem that boom, would pop out of meditation. Allen Ginsberg and Chogyam Trungpa came up with an exercise for writing haiku, and I think there's some truth to that. I didn't meet either of those guys, but I went to the Naroba summer writing thing for a couple of times for a week or so. And one of the classes said, well, look, here's what a haiku is. You're in meditation, and the haiku is an observation. Okay, that's the first 2 lines of the haiku, and then the last line, the line that rings the bell, is your comment on that observation. And haiku are not just 5-7-5. First of all, Japanese syllables don't really work like English syllables, and second, it's not really what it's about. Sam Hammond, who was one of my writing teachers, said, oh, haiku's not that. Haiku is leaf, leaf, flower. And I see a lot of people writing haiku, there's no flower there. There's no ring the bell, there's no right? So look for that and if you're writing a haiku, put that in there.
The nature of that question is about the context for these 2 weeks here, is Zen and Writing, because, maybe most people know that in Zen, we talk all the time about, it's kind of an anti-story aspect to Zen practice, to not believe our stories, to kind of discourage us from telling endless stories, about ourselves and about others. And yet, you know, one of the greatest writers, you know, of all time is Dogen Zenji, the founder of this school in Japan. So it's just interesting. I think this is about, you know, a deeper process that we just call it writing or we call it zazen. This is what we're getting at in this 2-week series of ours. It's like, you know, what we say in the Sangha, the 4 energies that we practice are zazen, self-care, social justice, and creativity. And so these are all processes of activities in the human realm that can deeply inform each other. And so this is maybe focused more on the process of creativity, the process of zazen. But actually, John, there's so many questions I have that you could pick up on any little thing. But maybe I would also just throw out there, knowing that you're very involved up in New Hampshire with actions and standouts, and I'm just thinking about the process in our world as it is, our nation right now, you know, not to mention our own particular delusion, each one of us individually. Healing is what I'm getting at, or relief, or comfort, or something, because I have a sense as you're reading your own writing, it's fun, there's joy there. And I just wonder if this feels, I don't know, the word salvation's coming up, or something that's like even a buoy or some kind of lifeboat for you.
Well, I think people need to laugh. We got beaten down by COVID, we're beaten down by politics, you know, I think people need to laugh. There's a kind of shared humanity there, I think, that maybe we're missing. Arguing with each other. The other thing, as you're talking, I thought about, and this is something I think about too, if you write stories, you know how stories work. And if you're telling yourself stories and you're writing stories, oh, I recognize this, I know how this works. This reality is not really a story. We like to think of that. That's how we understand things a lot of times, but it's not really. So the anti-story is pointing at it. You know, it's a parody. Parody seems to be the best way to do it, where people are entertained. Hey, look, don't take this too seriously. You know. Why
So I'm curious about that right there. Don't take this too seriously with faith, which is a very serious word. So I know you said there's not much more to say about it, but I would encourage you to say a little bit more about that.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good thing to think about.
Yeah.
To think about it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else? Anything coming up? And we do not have to go until 8:30.
Okay.
You know.
And I will say that, you know,
Yes.
a lot of these books are in the Zen Center library, if you can find it. And if you want to adopt some of them, I'll give you the special Dharma Buddy prize.
Oh, John, thank you. Yeah, so please, if you haven't already, to go check out John's Pantheon, John's life.
There's a couple more, and actually there's a couple more on the computer too. But, you know, you're right for 28 years. This stuff piles up. So,
Yeah, maybe you gave a few of us the lowdown, but maybe not everybody heard it. And
Okay,
maybe people
so
can
sure.
interact a little bit with your books.
these 3 are short story collections. These 2 are funny. This is the most recent one. That's parodies. This is serious short stories. The next row are poetry collections. Okay, this one's a chapbook about physics. Poems about physics. Really tough to write about because writing is senses, imagery, right? Physics is talking about stuff like atoms that you can't really feel and see and smell. How do you do it? It's a challenge. I tried. 2 collections. This one in the middle there is poetry of place, travel poems. And then these things on the bottom here are novels. Okay, so this one on the end, it's a science fiction novel about clones. Everybody's the same. There should be no violence. How come there is? That's what I'm exploring there. This is 3 spy novels in one book, or rather in one collection there. I loved James Bond as a kid. I wanted to write something similar. Yellow Lines, this is a teenager whose mother is dying of cancer, so the family decides to spend his college money on a trip around the world. Kind of talking about how a generation gets betrayed. This one is a cyberpunk prostitution novel dealing with religion. Well, what's that doing? Okay, here's a woman working as a prostitute, except while somebody's using her body, she's off in a different virtual reality. And she chooses to follow a religious leader in the virtual reality. What's going on with that? The last one is a book about graduate school in physics. I did graduate school in physics. I got pissed off because all the shows are about lawyers and doctors. Why aren't there any books about physicists?
So you're a physicist?
That's what I trained as. It's a very tough way to earn a living. A lot of competition. You think that when people say, "Oh, we need STEM," that's what I thought. Hey, you need STEM? Okay. I don't get to be your professor. Hey, I got this great STEM education. Guess what? Uninterested. I got through it. I ended up being a cost estimator for defense programs. How's that? Well, I don't know. I was a systems engineer doing radiation therapy. That's kind of like physics, and then I was a system engineer doing cost estimates, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. There is a book called Wasted Education by a sociologist whose name I forget. But his thesis is, if we need STEM students so badly, if we need STEM workers so badly, why do employers treat them so badly? Why are they all getting laid off? How come they're all working 12-hour days, 70-hour weeks? How come they're bringing a bunch of them in from India to keep the wages down? Good book. It's true. At least my experience. It matches my experience.
Okay, well, so maybe in a minute, maybe we can interact with the books, and this is our chance to support a writer. And I don't mean to be making a sales pitch here, but actually, Kendall, would you be interested in giving us just if you can, just a little preview of next week? And I'm sorry that I distributed paper. I thought I misunderstood. I thought
No, it's okay. It's no worries.
I think that's the preview for next week. Definitely please bring paper.
Okay, we'll keep it.
I would love to do I'm in the poetry realm. Poetry is my practice, my love. And I would say writing as a process and a practice is something that I've loved my whole life. I was actually just realizing that the two things I feel like I want to bring just to show are books that I've had since I was 14. And I realized that's like a 30th anniversary sort of situation where I'm turning 44, and I was like, wow, these things have been with me since I was 30. And I would love to at least just kind of talk a little bit about process, read some things that are a couple things that I want to talk about with form, I'll read some things that were slightly older from a program that I did a couple years ago, and then some things that just came up from our queer soccer panel, because for me, I think all of these things, practice and identity and all kinds of things that are related to that, are folding together in that realm. But I really would love for us to have time to do a little bit of writing together.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you both for being willing to just take this plunge. I think there's a lot to explore here, the connection between, writing and Zen. It's called Zen and Writing, but I mean this process of being with ourselves, and it's interesting, in stillness and in silence, not activating discriminative thinking that points to words start to divide up reality, and yet not rejecting words as part of how we interact and how we express ourselves. So I'm really just appreciating this exploration for the next couple of weeks with both of you. And I know it came on suddenly, so thank you again. I think it's just a really great way to start the practice period, to have a little bit of something different. So please, let's interact with the books. And we will in a few minutes, however, chant the polyrefuges, so don't go too far. Okay.
Which one is the physics book?
This one right here.
This one?
Nope.
This one?
That one.
So how far did you go with your physics education? Work, if you don't mind me asking.
Let's see. Did a postdoc.
So you have PhD in physics?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a postdoc at a lab called Triumph in Vancouver, Canada. Then I moved down to Seattle, got a job for a company that did meteor burst communications. They bounce radio waves off of meteor, after micrometeor trails, and it was kind of a nuclear war survivable communication thing. They could.
So you're doing kind of first principle type things?
I was doing scattering experiments.
System, first principle, electrodynamics, that kind of stuff?
No, I was doing scattering experiments off of targets. So, my advisor did. He did like knockout experiments where a proton comes in, two protons come out of the nucleus, and you can find sort of a wave function for the protons in the nucleus from that.
Okay.
The story of wave impulse approximation.
Yeah. I have to write a lot, but it's all nonfiction.
Yeah.
Communicating with people, and an engineer, and English was not, grammar was not particularly my interest. I didn't realize that communicating with people was so important. So, and trying to get a clear message across is my challenge. And
requirements, documents, and tests. And so
just texting people and not losing the context of what, multiple times a day.
This is fun.
So the Dharma Buddy price is $10 for anything you want is $10.
John, do you take Venmo?
No, I do not.
Where are my questions?
PayPal. I do PayPal.
And will you sign the book?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you gotta ask. Yes. You got the author in the room.
There was one person here,
You can PayPal, right?
well, I found his name on LinkedIn. And he was
John Wesick at gmail.com.
like a mixed one.
Alright, so, if anybody needs help with that, I can make sure that.
Which ones are the Sunday short stories?
This one or that one?
This one that I'm flipping through is very funny. Yeah, it's also good. It's a killer title.
We gotta break this out into. This is a beautiful way to end the evening. This is the first thing I opened to.
Oh, this one, December 31st,
We need to
meditation
pick this up on New Year's
on
Eve.
impermanence. Yeah, this is, you go to sit through the night, right? By the way, they do it at Aikido doujos too, so they call it Toshi Koshi Keiko, where they actually do Aikido practice. Okay, December 1st, a meditation on impermanence. During the day, I pay bills, dust, and vacuum to greet the future unencumbered, then to the meditation hall. Stillness, whiff of incense, the anonymity of darkness, a lone candle paints the Buddha statue gold. Mind obsesses as usual. Plans, worries, a craving for black forest cake, maybe, just maybe, the internal narrator hush. Outside, shouts of joy, fireworks, the year turns, sadness tinges the celebration as the rocket of mortality launches me into old age. Fools threat democracy. Progress is only a slogan. The temple bell sounds, chanting, I want my old year back.
Are you suggesting we make that part of the meeting?
Yeah, the blue one, yeah, the blue one, yeah.
Alright.
Oh, this is great. Okay, good. I'm holding on to it for you.
Read that. That is, it's a bonfire amazing.
First day, Chris. Are these on your website as well?
Yeah, you can go to our website, johnwesick.com, that's JONWSICK.com, and there's a tab for books, and we'll take you to links where you can buy them all. There's a website that shall not be named.
Yeah, that one that should not be named.
This is for you. Okay. And your Gmail is just your name at Gmail.
Yep.
PayPal.
Yep.
If anybody needs John's PayPal address, you can email.
So how do we buy these?
Sorry?
How do we buy these?
Well, cash is good.
Okay. Yeah, some cash.
Oh, you can get the signature now.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
when
yeah.
your people are done.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, do it. John, your signature is requested.
Yeah, okay.
Tom, I'm stealing your pen.
Very nice.
I'm stealing your pen for a moment, Tom.
For some reason, they cross out the name here, I don't know why they do that.
I'll get one after
Thank you.
that. On the side?
What's the typical
I don't want
back
I don't want people to
price
stuff
for
all
these?
No, we can.
Typical 50 bucks.
Okay.
I'll send it there.
Whenever people.
I'll send it there.
I'll take it.
This is, we're entering a season of book readings and signings, it just happened that way. All these people who are coming, they've all written books. So Shoto, get ready for just, to have.
By the way, the publisher here is Alien Buddha Press, I don't know if you noticed that or not.
I did.
Yeah, I did notice
saw
that.
that.
That's a fun
How
one
many
for
my
me.
fiction choices good?
I like it.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, John and Karen Hall. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And just, it feels like there's at least a few more writers in the room, so heads up. Practice here in the Sangha is every quarter at the change of the season, we have a seasonal ceremony. So the fall, I hate to say it, but the autumnal equinox is coming up. When is it? Next week? It's coming up very soon.
Equinox is the 21st.
Yes, it's coming up very soon. And so, so we're celebrating that. Is it the Thursday night? Is it
Sunday.
Sunday?
It's my birthday, it's easy to remember.
Oh, it's my mom's birthday too. Yes. I bet you're not turning 88.
Not this year.
Not this year. So part of the practice of welcoming the new season is sharing poetic words of the season. So it could be,
We also have a hike on the 21st.
yes, but just focusing on the writing right now. So please to keep that in mind on the 21st, to come to this ceremony, and it might be a poem that you yourself have written, or another poem. William Stafford seems to be a favorite. He's, I think, Ed Brown's favorite.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't read that poem. He didn't even know about it. I'm
Yeah,
surprised.
yeah.
I thought that was,
Oh,
I thought for
you
sure
did.
that was
Yeah.
that he won.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. It's always really wonderful to hear people's poems. And And then Kenho, later on that day.
Be hiking in Lynn Woods, so we'll get outside to enjoy the comics. And if you're interested, just, we'll be.
Thank you, everybody. For those who can help out, we'll just reassemble them.